Hi, I'm Debby Montgomery Johnson, founder of the nonprofit The Woman Behind the Smile, and your host of Stand Up and Speak Up, a show that is about each and every one of us. Many of us have something we're hiding, something we're ashamed of, something that through no fault of our own or through our own making, something that we keep hidden, and that in turn keeps us hidden from each other and the world. Good people go through terrible situations. Wise people know when and how to let it go. Everything that happens to us helps us grow, and while it may be hard to see it right away, the most important thing to do is to change our perceptions about our circumstances. Stand Up and Speak Up features ordinary people who've been through extraordinary struggles and found the courage to step out from behind their smiles and speak up about their experiences and the lessons gleaned from those experiences. I'm so excited to be here today. I actually took last week off. I was traveling with my husband, and we had an excellent show with Dr. Tim McGinnis as our guest host. But today I'd like to welcome our special speaker. Her name is Angela Marie, and Angela comes to us, I believe, from Pennsylvania. Hello, Miss Angela.
Hello, Debbie. How are you?
I'm so grateful that you're here with us today. Thank you so much for being in my life today.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here. Happy to be here.
Now, Angela and I, for full disclosure, have not met in person. We have actually done Zoom conversations. She was referred to me by another friend of ours. And when she and I first had the conversation about who we are and what we are, we kind of, danced around the subject of being moms and these kinds of things. And then I told her my story, and she's like, oh, my gosh, Deb, I have a story to tell you. And we had such a good conversation. So today, everybody, we're going to be talking a little bit about Angela's background and what got her to the point of being a transformation coach, a speaker, an author, and all these things. But we're going to talk today about toxic relationships, and are they bringing us down? What are they? Do we all have them? I'm sure we do. How are they holding us back from reaching our unlimited potential? And then how do we follow our dreams and really go up, up, and away? And I find myself that dreaming is something that's very hard for me to I'm very practical. And it says, what do you want to do in your life, and what dream big? I'm thinking, I have very small aspirations, although they're great. But we're going to talk about that today and find out maybe what are my limiting beliefs. So, Miss Angela, I want you to kind of tell us your story. Introduce yourself to everybody, because I'm sure many don't know who you are.
Absolutely. So my name is Angela Marie. I'm founder of FindYourPurposeAndShine.com. I'm a transformation coach, and I'm also a speaker and an author, and I absolutely love what I do because my goal is to impact millions of lives. And, my backstory it's kind of messy, but I'm sure you can all relate. I know, Debbie, you can relate because of our conversation together. But so, what really got me to a place to where I am today is my backstory. Right? Like you said it best, Debbie, like as long as I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but as long as we learn, right, from our past history, from our past mistakes, and getting involved in these toxic relationships or what have you, you can grow from that. But you have to make the decision to grow from that. It's not just something that, it just happens. You have to make the decision and then go after it. And so back when I was, when I was a little girl, I grew up in a divorced home. There was a lot of yelling, screaming, fighting, arguing, things like that. I mean, there was just a lot of things that really kind of beat down my self-esteem, if you will. I'm not going to go into a lot about that. I'd really rather focus on the relationships, which really got me into a place of where I am today and what really transformed me. The reality is that, having that low self-esteem and, growing up like that, I know that my parents didn't do it on purpose, right? None of us do. We all make mistakes. I didn't do the things on purpose in my life that I did getting involved in those toxic relationships. But what had happened was, I was engaged at a really young age, and, just looking for acceptance, just looking for approval. I just wanted this, happy, healthy, fun, marriage, right? And unfortunately, when you're not healed yourself, you start to sabotage. You start to self-sabotage. You sabotage your relationships that are good for you, and then you end up pushing them away. And that's exactly what happened. Ended up getting divorced at 26 years old. And then from there, I attracted unhealthy in my life because I was unhealthy. At that time, I didn't know what way to turn, left, right, go forward, backwards. I had no idea. And so I had met a guy who was an alcoholic, physically abusive, verbally abusive. We were on and off again for 8 years. And this is going to be really hard for me to share, but I'm going to share it anyway because I have no idea who's listening. But when I was...
me.
What's that?
I said it's you and me, and I think we need to... I'm getting some background.
Yeah, I hear background noise.
Folks. Let's see if I mute everybody. Are you there, Angela?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is
that's okay.
Between you and me.
Okay, awesome. But let me back up for a second because because this is actually part of my story. I became an entrepreneur back when I was 21 years old, and I started a network marketing company. At that time, in my healthy relationship, we were married. We did have 2 boys together, and then from there, I had started in a network marketing and direct sales company. And did really well. I was able to supplement his income. I was able to stay home with my son, my one son at the time. And from there, it allowed me to stay home. It allowed me to stay home up until, I was in network marketing and direct sales for 17 years. And 2 years ago was when I made the decision, my final decision, mind you, to become a transformation coach. And We'll get to that in a minute, but I want to share that because that's a really strong piece of my backstory and why I do what I do today and why I gained the skills and the knowledge to do what I do, not just from past experiences, but from actually being in the trenches and working those businesses and being able to incorporate and plugging into personal development. And I know my story sounds kind of crazy because a lot of people say, well, what you do in one area of your life, you do in every area of your life. And I have to tell you from experience, I completely disagree with that. Because in business, that's where I buried myself, right? That's what I was good at, and working with people and being able to help people and just diving into that. And so that's really where I was at. Now, I did go through a time where, yes, that was true because I was struggling with depression and all kinds of things, and anxiety was really high because of being in a toxic relationship. And so back in 2008, I fell down the stairs. And I don't want to say I fell down the stairs. I got pushed down the stairs. That story didn't come out back then. Of course, it came out talking to people in my book and speaking, and it's still very difficult to speak about. And I'm going to tell you the reason why it's difficult is because I get these flashbacks of, what happened, where I was at, and what I didn't do. What I didn't do was speak my truth, right? And so I didn't want my daughter to be without a dad, so that was going through my head. But we had a fight. He was completely drunk, and down the steps I went, and he did actually end up dialing 911. I ended up unconscious, and I could hear everything going on around me when the ambulance got here, everything. I could hear conversation. I could hear all the talking, everything, and I couldn't respond. And the worst feeling is to not be able to respond, right? it's I know I say right, like if you haven't been through this part, like in this kind of a situation, you don't know what that looks like. But think about, Debbie, like if you're knocked out and you can hear everything and you're crying out inside, but you can't talk. You don't have a voice. You don't have, anything. All you can do is hear. And so we'll fast forward. I was in the hospital, and I could hear everything going on, and I couldn't speak up. And I remember one of the doctors in the background saying that if she makes this through with no complications or brain damage or whatever, that she would be a miracle. I did wake up, and they were shocked that I was waking up, I was speaking. They did tell me I would have short-term memory loss. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know the listeners on this line, but my faith in God at that moment, or even in every area of my life, but in that moment, completely changed. And it completely changed because I knew that He had healed me. I didn't have short-term memory loss. I remembered everything. I knew everything up until that point, and I remember everything prior to that. So 100% healed. To know that there was a possibility that I could have been a vegetable or what happened, because the way that I hit my head, it was in the right spot, in the back of my head. And the stairs that I had in my home at that time, they weren't very padded. There wasn't any padding underneath. They were worn, and it was just the carpet. And so, that was, I would say that was probably the worst trauma in my life. There was a lot more to it than that, but it was on and off again. It was just constant. Now, I want to kind of go here. I don't know if anybody has been through a relationship that was toxic and abusive that had to do with drugs or alcohol. But certain people, when they're not drinking, they're good people. Like, you wouldn't think for a minute that somebody like that could hurt you or harm you. So I just want to throw that out there and since then, by the way, he's gotten help. He's went to rehab. My daughter and her father now have a relationship together. So praise God for that. Answered prayers after 13 years, right? Because for me, I knew that there had to be good, right? Because I saw the good. But as soon as you mix that with alcohol, forget it. Totally different person. It's like Jekyll and Hyde, right?
Well, it's interesting, too, right now with people social distancing and staying at home. There are statistics that are saying that abuse has gone up, drinking has gone up. So what do people do if they're in a situation where there's someone that may be predisposed to a violence or whatever in their drinking? What do they do? How do they get away from this person, this toxic relationship?
Debbie, I have had so many conversations about this. Early on, even like our second, third week in, it started really hitting me hard. And it hit me hard because not only did I have one toxic relationship, I had two. So I went out of that one and went into another one. And I said to my kids, I was like, we have to look at the silver lining in all of this. Thank God we aren't in this position. Thank God we're not in this situation anymore, because I really don't know how all this would work, right? Like I could certainly call the police, I could get them out, those sort of things. But when I'm honestly like, I'm at this like loss because I didn't experience that myself, right? Like I don't know what you would do. All I can tell women or even men, honestly, there's both men and women go through these sort of things, toxic and abusive relationships. And so I don't want to discount that. But what I can say is anybody that's in that situation, regardless of what's going on right now, is get out and figure it out. Regardless, you just have to make a decision. And I believe that, so if you couldn't tell, I'm a Christian, and I believe that God will protect us if we take action. And I don't want to say if we take action. That's the wrong choice of words. He will protect us regardless, but he is going to have us, period, end of story. We make a decision, and he comes right up, and he just swoops it. It's like, I experienced that. It was like, okay, all right, you made the decision, now let's go. And you start to get answers. You start to understand what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to go. So I believe that once you make the decision, a way is going to be made. And that's in any area of your life. And that's, again, from experiences and after experiences of what I've done. I find when you lay an indecision, right, like you start to get more confused. And you don't know which direction to take. So you have to make the decision to say enough is enough and figure it out. Contact the police. That's what they're there for. They're there to protect us. They're there to help us, right? And they're there to serve us. So I can't tell you how many times the police were called. Like, it's scary to even think about how many times I had to call the police. So there is an answer. You just have to be willing to make that decision to do it. Early on, I don't know. I heard a lot of nightmare stories early on with people, like nightmare stories. People that, the police couldn't come, or couldn't go to a shelter because it was closed, or, things of that nature. But now, in the position we're in right now, with things being open, across the nation, and of course, people are out and about and things like that, there is help. I strongly believe that. But you're absolutely right, Debbie. Like, this broke my heart. And when people were talking about the virus and, how it's killing people, the only thing that I could think of at that moment was, what about other people's lives? What about the ones that are being abused at home where they're not safe at home? What about those kids that are being abused by their parents or a step-parent that aren't safe at home, and their only outlet is to go to school to get away from it all, which was my kids years ago, right? So you start to think about these other people's lives that are at stake, and the people that can't take it anymore, and then they commit suicide, or there's homicides going on. So you are absolutely on point, Debbie. My heart was breaking for quite some time, and I had to redirect myself and become center with myself, because if I let it get to me to a place where I started just taking it on as my own, then what can I do, right? So my goal was to, if anybody came to me, I could talk to them, I could speak to them, I could guide them, I could direct them, and regardless of what's going on out there, you still have 911, and you can still get them out or get out, depending on the situation.
I think people fear change, even if their situation is awful. The unknown of what it could be sometimes just holds you back from making what really would be the right decision.
Right. I agree with you. And I think, too, when you're in an abusive relationship and it's toxic, and you almost get complacent, right? And you start to feel like if you already had low self-esteem before, and now you have it even more so, you don't have any confidence, right? Like well, I'm not worthy, or maybe this is all I deserve, or, they start blame shifting, that it's all your fault, but they act the way that they do, right? So let's move on from that relationship, because this is what really broke the mold for me. What really I started seeing a shift in my mindset. And so I met this guy. He was referred to by friends of mine, or referred to. I hate to say that as a business type of thing, but like recommended, whatever, like a matchmaker. I don't know. regardless of what it was, we met. And I had a bad gut feeling in the very beginning, and I kept pushing it away and pushing it away. And then they kind of like set us up. We went out one night, and they set us up, and we met, and then we just started dating. So he, you know, it was kind of like the guy that gave me all the attention, and you know, there was no abuse, and it was all like putting me on this pedestal, right? So of course, in my mindset was, oh, this is great, this is the one, you know. And I ended up meeting and marrying him in 6 months. So, and things started really going downhill. I found out that he had a over $14,000 tax bill the day after we got married. It was in my mailbox, and I was like, what is this? He's like, I told you about that. I'm like, no. You told me you owed the IRS, but not this much. Like, the amount that he told me was not even close to what it was. Then I found out his credit was in the trash. And that was when, you know, he really wanted to, you know, buy a house and together. And you know, I had to pay for pretty much everything. In the very beginning, you know, it seemed to be okay. Like, you know, I don't want to say the very beginning. He actually wasn't working when we got married. I paid for our wedding. I paid for our honeymoon, you know, all of those sort of things. And then he ended up getting a job, and, you know, he would split the bills to a point, but it was always a fight. It was always a struggle. It was always, you know, it just never was enough. So anyway, he left me 5 times in 3 years, and he would blame it on my anxiety. He would blame it on me. It was all my fault. You know, always said, you know, everything's always about money, you know, always about money all the time with you, and things like that. And it would always be blame shifting, and, you know, how I was controlling. And, you know, at one point it started to get, I mean, like when I went to leave because he got really loud and got in my face, of course, all of these flashbacks come back, and I leave. I go out to my car, and he's jumping on my car, screaming, trying to get me to not leave. He's pushed me before, and, you know, no hitting or anything like that, but, you know, it got to a point where I was like, okay, you know what? This is unhealthy. This isn't good. And on top of that, he swindled me out of over $50,000. And it was a little bit at a time, here and there, you know, wouldn't pay bills. I would have to bug him at one point, like, you know, can you please pay bills? We have to pay bills. So we would fight about that all the time. And it was always, you know, again, the blame shifting, like yelling at me, it's about money all the time for you. And I'm like, well, yeah, like I paid a $14,000 tax bill off for you, refinanced my house to do it, took money out of my savings account. We went on vacations. We went to Disney. And who paid for it all? It was me. And even after our divorce, he kept trying to come after me for more money after the papers were signed.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening, and you know my story where I was, you know, I defrauded, or I voluntarily gave money away, you know, a lot of money to men I didn't know. And I'm sitting here, and there is a lot of victim blaming for women that have been victims of relationship fraud online. But the more women I talk to, and particularly in your case, you know, you were paying for everything at the beginning and giving and giving and giving, and you happen to see the guy, which I guess part of me is like, if this happens to women that don't see the man, and it happens to women that do see the man, how do we protect ourselves? You know, I have remarried, and I have a wonderful husband, and the thing that really got me to be able to trust him was on our second date when he told me something very personal about his life and told me the truth. And I sat there, and his friends had said, don't tell her. And I'm like, CJ, because you told me, I can trust you. I've been lied to for 2 years. So by you opening up so vulnerably at the beginning, I can trust you now. But he also paid for dinner, because at that point I'm like, I'm not paying for dinner. If the man is, I'm the old school, I'm your grandma age. If the guy is worth it for me, he's going to pay for my dinner. He's going to pay for my bills. And we as women, I think particularly working women entrepreneurs that have the financial wherewithal kind of feel like, well, we can afford it. We can take care of these guys. Why do we do that?
So, I think that, I know for me, Debbie, I don't know about, I think everybody is different in that. But I think you get to a point where, well, it's okay, he just needs help, right? He just needs help, and I guess if I can do it, I'll do it. Well, he loves me, he cares about me because he shows me affection, right? Like, so you're getting the other side of it, like the affectionate side and the loving side, right? If that makes any sense.
Because it does, but we don't see the manipulation that is coming with that.
We don't.
It may not be malicious, but there are a lot of con men out there where they're very, very creative and clever, and our heart hijacks our brain.
Absolutely. And if here's what I found, and this is why I do what I do today. Here's what I found. So plugging into personal development for 15 years, I've gone to so many personal development trainings, business development trainings with one of my coaches. I was going all over the place at one point in time for about 3 years straight. And this was when my daughter's dad and I were together, or not together, because we were on and off again for 8 years. And I understood personal development, right? But I thought I could fix it. So I had this fix-it mentality back then, right? And so we only hear about 7 to 10% of the information we read, see, and hear for the very first time. And we don't always catch what isn't meant to be caught at that moment, right? So I caught a lot of things, and I grew a lot in my business. This is why I know it's separate. I was doing very well in business. In fact, I hit the top of the leaderboards in business, right? I understood how, my prospecting ratios were high to get them information. My closing ratio was high. It was, I even ended up in the Home Business Connection magazine because of, financial success with my business and building relationships on the business side that were healthy. But I couldn't seem to get this piece right in my life. And it wasn't until this guy left me for the very last time, and I was so grateful that it was over because I was I saw the patterns again, and I was like, how do I figure this out? In fact, he left me on Mother's Day. On Mother's Day was the very last time. And praise God for my kids. My oldest son, he just started driving at that time, and my kids took me out to eat, and we went to Starbucks for coffee, and we sat and we talked, and we went to church that morning. But after church was when I came home and realized he was gone. And funny part about it is he left me a Mother's Day card, but still took all of his things and left.
Well, honestly, looking back, maybe it was the greatest gift he could have given you.
It was 100%. I'm grateful that I went through this, that I can share my experience. But at the same time, I look back and I go, what the heck were you thinking? In your heart, you've got to find who you are. And it took me, really needing to work on myself and knowing that I had to work on myself, knowing that there was no other option but to work on myself, or I'm going to continue to attract these toxic relationships in my life. And so when I made that decision, I made that decision. I read books before I would go to bed at night. In the middle of the afternoon, I started taking care of myself, even though I didn't think I was good enough, worthy enough, beautiful enough, none of those things yet, right? But I knew that I couldn't put myself and my kids through that. And through it all, I'll tell you what, my kids are amazing. They shock me every single day because I'm like, I protected them. I was always there for them regardless of the abuse. I would always stick up for them, right? Because it was like Mama Bear came out. So I had like this one side, but as soon as it came to my kids, forget it. Like you're not going to do that to them, because I knew that I had to protect them as a mom.
Absolutely.
And
you got to protect yourself first. It's like the being on an airplane. You've got to give yourself the oxygen first that you can share with others. And I'm sure
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with that. And that's when I made the decision to go, you know what? I've got to work on me now. Now it's my time to work on myself, right? Still take care of my kids, but that in turn is taking care of my kids even more so than what I could have ever done.
And so that's not selfish. I mean, so many of us are such giving people that you think, well, if I do anything for myself, then it's self-centered or selfish. It's not. You have to take care of yourself first.
Kind of like if, I like the analogy of if your gas tank is empty, right? And you're not, like, if your gas tank is empty, that thing ain't going to go, right? It's not going anywhere. You have to refill. You have to refuel for it to keep going, for it to keep moving, right? And if you don't give it gas, right, or you keep abusing your car, or you don't give it new oil, right, eventually it's going to keep, deteriorating. Other things, other problems are going to happen if you don't take care of it. Well, I know that's a material thing, and that's just an analogy, you guys, or Debbie, like, it's an analogy, right? So if we don't refuel our spirits and ourselves, we're going to end up a mess, right?
Well, that is so true. And it's interesting. I was listening to one of your videos the other day, and you were talking about building a house on sand. And my kids grew up listening to a song called "The Wise Man Builds His House Upon a Rock." And you have to have a solid foundation, and if you got to start with yourself.
You do. So 100%.
And you also said something interesting. It said it's about how we respond, not how we react, because reaction is an emotional thing. You got to stop and think to be able to respond. But reacting, there's no stopping or thinking. It's just doing.
Exactly. Yep.
Right?
Yep, you have to think about it first. You are 100% correct. So anytime somebody says it's how we react to it, I'm like, no. It's how we respond instead of react. React is it's an action word, and it's in the moment. Respond is you take a step back and you think about what you're going to say or how you're going to approach it, and then you respond in a healthy way.
React is it's an emotional response. Right. And if we're looking back at things, there were times when I reacted that I was probably not in my right mind, that I should have just stepped back and breathe, look at stuff and get the emotion out of it. Get a buddy. I always say, especially with dating, you need a dating buddy, someone that's a little more objective to get you out of that emotional rampage that you might be going through, especially if you've had some sort of victimization or relationship fraud. You are just not seeing things the way they are. And I always say that my last suit has no pockets, which people laugh, and I'm like, but I'm not taking any money with me. Now, it certainly helps on the way, but I lost a lot of money in my situation. And many women that I work with, that I correspond with, have lost a lot of money. But it's not the money that is holding us back from moving forward. It is that lack of trust, that getting your heart ripped out from underneath you, that is so difficult to be able to move forward unless you have hope. And so as a transformation coach, how do you give people that sliver of hope so that they can start moving forward?
I love that question because you already mentioned some of it, right? So first you have to come to a place where you make a decision that no more, I'm not putting up with anymore. Does that make sense? So I'm done, and I've made the decision I need to work on myself. And I mean make a solid decision, enough is enough. And once you get to that place, when you start working on yourself, so for me, I went about things a little bit different. Of course, I read books, I listened to audio trainings, I did all of these things for several months. And then I, had this feeling in my spirit that I actually had back in 2010, which was my desire to become a coach. I wanted to coach. I wanted to speak. I didn't want to write a book, but here we are. I wrote one last spring. But I did want to coach, and I wanted to speak, and I wanted to impact lives. However, back then, I didn't have the confidence to do it, right? I kept, and then plus, on top of that, I kept being told I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy enough, or, well, you're not making $1 million a year, so you're not qualified. Even though, I was very successful in working very part-time around my kids and, bought my own home, cared for them, did all of these things, right? And I, I was successful, right? What somebody's level of success isn't the same as the next person, right? So in my eyes, I was like, man, I'm in the top, the top 5% of people that succeed in a home-based business. And have been. A lot of people don't make any money, right? And I don't even know how, except for the grace of God, that I was able to do what I've done. Most people can't build a business like that and struggle in their personal life. There's not a lot of people that can do that because of personal development. If you want to grow personally, or if you want to increase your income, you need to grow personally. If you want to live a healthy life, even in business or your career, you have to grow personally. So it does go together. And what I've found is that it makes it a lot easier to build a business when you're not involved in toxic relationships. So what I do with my clients, to answer your question, is, so people schedule a breakthrough call. It's a free call. We hop on the phone. They actually have to fill out, answer 6 questions so that I know where that call is going. And in the very first 2 coaching sessions, when that client makes the decision, yes, you know what, I need help, I want to work with you, we start with the mindset. It's all about reprogramming. It's reprogramming your sucker called the subconscious. And if you heard my videos, Debbie, you heard me say sucker called the subconscious.
Yeah, I love that.
You do? I don't know. It flew out of my mouth one day, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody else say that. But it does. It sucks everything in. From the time that we were really little is what we're reprogramming. We are reprogramming everything, all of our beliefs, our limiting belief system that we believe from the time we were younger, through all of the experiences, good and bad, that we've been through, and we are completely transforming our minds, 100%. But it has to start with your subconscious. So whatever you use after the words I am, you become. And how many of us that have been in abusive relationships, or, we had low self-esteem from the time that we were little to adulthood, and we always say, well, I'm not worthy, I'm not worth it, I'm not beautiful, I'm not, and it's all these negative things that come out of our mouths. And the more that you speak negative, the more negative you're going to get. And so, again, I like that, Debbie, that you saw that. But let me ask you guys a question. If you build a house on sand, what will happen to that house?
Just look at the beach down here in Florida.
Okay, it's going to collapse, right?
It is. It's just going to collapse. And, we can only change ourselves. We can't change anybody else. But I liked how you said the I am. The next word out of that is what you're going to be. So if you just leave out the not, you can't say I am not. You have to say I am. I am what? I am beautiful. I am smart. There was a great movie, The Help. Did you ever see the movie The Help?
That sounds very familiar.
It was the Southern Nannies, the Southern Help, and it was a story written about a little privileged little white girl that was speaking about her help. And one of her nannies would always say to her, "You are beautiful, you are smart," and just got her in the mindset of, this is who I am. So she grew up with that, and we're taught later on in life that we take it upon ourselves to believe we're not smart enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not skinny enough, we're not all these things enough.
Right, because we're told that, right? Or because there is a lot of, maybe fighting or whatever going on in the household depending on your environment. And so that actually starts to bring you down too.
Well, and our girlfriends, think about it when you're a teenager. After my husband died and I had to start dating again at 52, all that came to my mind about dating was when I was 15 and 16, and I was looking at all my skinny friends with their long, pretty hair, and I was thinking, look what I'm competing against, which is so stupid, But that came ripping back through my mind at 52, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Deb, this is ridiculous. Get that one out of your mind. But it's tough. We just beat ourselves up over those things.
Oh, absolutely. So what I do is I work with people on, so you're going to build, with the house, you build a house on concrete, what's going to happen?
Solid.
It's going to stand. It doesn't matter what storm comes through. I don't care, in the natural realm, when I say a house, we think of storms, we think of tornadoes, hurricanes, things like that. It comes ripping through. That foundation is going to stand. Right?
That's true.
Another analogy I just came up with, too. Think about it, an earthquake. Right? We know that foundation can crack. It can crack, but it's still going to be there.
Well, I'm the same with a storm, because in a tornado or hurricane, you could lose the top of the house, but the foundation's still there.
Yep. So the purpose of reprogramming your mindset, reprogramming that sucker called the subconscious, and you reprogram that thing and you rewrite your past story into a positive experience. I know that sounds crazy, and some people are like, how do you do that? This is exactly what I work with my clients on.
So how can people get a hold of you for that free phone call?
It's just findyourpurposeandshine.com. Findyourpurposeandshine.com.
Okay.
And they can click on that, book a free call. And it really is about reprogramming this sucker. It really is. I mean, people have asked me time and time again. They've read my book. They hear my story, especially if they read my book. They're like, how are you still standing? Because there's a lot of detail in there. How are you still here? How are you still standing? How do you do what you do? And I can tell you from experience, it was that 8-week boot camp that I registered for. When I made a decision to become a coach, I registered for that 8-week boot camp. And not only was I learning how to set up my signature system and how to work with people, right, and all of how to market and all of those things, right, but the very first, half of that course was mindset. How to utilize the law of attraction, how to heal yourself by the words that you speak, by changing your thoughts, by changing your actions. It is possible. I went through years and years of trauma, and within 6 months, I was a totally different person.
Yeah.
6 months. Most people, it takes years.
It does, but it takes focus, and it takes the desire to change yourself from within. And
right.
It's not easy, too. It takes time, so you have to be patient. It's like, losing weight. You didn't put it on in a day. You're not going to lose it in a day.
100%. Yep.
Now, I'm going to put this into question and answer mode because I want to allow people to come in. Hang on a second. If you'd like to ask Angela a question, please go ahead and hit *6. It should put you into a queue. Last week it didn't work for me as well, but hopefully it will this time. We've got a lot of people on the show, and I know that there are some questions that would like to be asked. I'm actually going to, let's see here. I've had trouble with the controls today. We did have a little bit of feedback from some callers. But Angela's here, you guys, to answer your questions. If not, I want you to look in. Angela, is your book available on Amazon, or how do they get your book? It's called Get Over Yourself and Find Your Purpose and Shine. What a great title.
So thank you. That website is a one-stop shop, literally. You can find everything on there. You can find all of my social media, including my Find Your Purpose and Shine private group. YouTube. Goodness, there's a lot. You can purchase my book right there on my website as well. So you only have to go to one place to find it all.
Okay, so *6 should get you in, guys. If it doesn't, I see my dad is on the show today. Dad, if you can't hit *6 and come in, then I know I'm having a problem here. But I'm looking over your stuff, Angela, again, and there's so much about it, about, what you're doing right now, but it all comes down to self-worth. Right?
100%. Yeah.
So how do you, you've got kids now, and your kids are teenagers. Do you see self-worth being limited at an early age, or, where does it start? Where are we starting to beat ourselves up?
I can't really relate to my kid, except for my daughter. My daughter struggles. And I don't know if it's more on the girl side. You know what I mean? Like, we're more sensitive, we're more emotional. We got all kinds of hormones going on, right? And obviously she's been through a lot with her dad. So I do my very best with her I started kind of seeing the low self-esteem, to be honest, at a really young age, like 6, 7 years old. I started seeing it as a mom. And so I tell her every day she's beautiful. I tell her every day that she's smart, and I'm always showing that kind of love to her and teaching her, confidence. And I'm going to tell you, regardless of what's going on, I can tell you before COVID, she was doing amazing, absolutely amazing. She would come on some of my live videos. She would, she'd stand up for herself, and she had a voice and still has a voice. But I'm going to be honest, COVID took a toll on her health, or her mental, I really have to work with her now more than ever because she was doing great. So she needs personal interaction with her friends. She needs to do things. She needs to, she's very active, right? She loves to go to the beach. She loves to go on vacations. And those are things that, I was doing with my kids. In fact, we went on a cruise in December to the Western Caribbean and Cozumel, Mexico, and Key West. And, so these are things that I always wanted to give my kids, and I've been able to. I've been blessed to be able to. There was a period of time in my life where I couldn't, and then I said enough was enough, and it was done. This is what we did, and I wanted to give my kids that life. And so my boys are doing very well. Their confidence, I would say, is pretty darn high. I don't want to say through the roof. I think they have some issues probably, but I don't know. I don't see it. I see confidence. I see strong men that they're independent. They are strong. They are really smart. Both of them have an entrepreneur spirit, mindset, if you will. My son, my 18-year-old son, he was always I'm going to call him my miracle baby. When he was born, he came out and he was purple and wasn't breathing and had fluid in his lungs, and they took him from me, and I didn't know what was happening. In fact, I was 21 years old, and I was basically called crazy because I just felt like I knew what I needed for my son, like that mama's intuition. Regardless, they finally listened to me, and he was fine, and here he is, healthy, happy, breathing, full of life. He's an entrepreneur. He actually built my website. He builds websites. He was selected by a very, very dear friend of mine, one of my best friends, who I actually do a morning show with. So you guys that you say you can attract good men into your life, you absolutely can. I attracted an entrepreneur in my life. He's also a coach and a speaker. He runs a non-for-profit for the youth, and he is opening up a franchise here for Ethan. He will be running that franchise, and they are getting a $15,000 grant for Ethan to start this franchise here. It's called Lawn and Leash. So he's going to be doing that here in Pennsylvania, and he lives out in Indiana. My friend FC. So, but Ethan is he's picked for that. So he's got multiple things going on as far as in his mind and business. He takes video and edits video. He's amazing. So as far as that goes, it took a lot of work on my part to work with them on their confidence.
It's really important. I work with an organization called SCARS, which is the Society for Citizens Against Relationship Scams. And one of the things that's come up recently is our awareness of scamming aimed towards teenagers, particularly teenage girls. And in this social distancing and online presence with the kids, we've got to be really careful as parents and friends and aunts and uncles, grandparents even, that if you see the kids, they're looking for friends. They're not out going to the beach. They're not, doing the things they normally do. And so they're looking for relationships and connection online. Well, the kids aren't prepared. I mean, I know 50-somethings aren't prepared, but the teenagers are not prepared to understand that that person that they're looking at online or Instagram or whatever is possibly and probably not who they're actually corresponding with. And they're being taken. Now, they might not have money, but they have access to mom and dad's credit cards. They have, they're putting themselves out there, their pictures, their locations, and the scammers are very, very well trained on how to groom people by telling them what they need to hear. And in a case where a young girl particularly might have a non-relationship with their fathers, these guys that are online are looking to draw these girls' hearts in, and they're very good at it. So I want people to be really
Doesn't that make you so sick, Debbie? That there's people
awful.
Out there
and what scares me, too, especially before COVID, is that our young women are putting their pictures out there. They're telling people where they're playing lacrosse or soccer or whatever. At 3 o'clock, they're going to be at this high school. And they're opening themselves up to, and I'm not, I'm not a person that is, like, really, I guess I'm turning more into one about being careful about where you are and who you are, situational awareness. Be aware that there are bad people out there. I have a Pollyanna view of life that I wish that more people were good, but there are a lot of bad people out there, and they don't have your best interest in mind. And our kids need to be extraordinarily careful about where they are and who they're telling their locations to, because trafficking is huge now. Fraud in general is a huge problem, and I worry about our young women particularly right now because they're so vulnerable to online predators. Yeah. And then I'll look at the 50-somethings and the 50 to 65-year-olds. Same goes with you. We are too trusting, and we think that guy in a military uniform that is telling us how beautiful we are is our next love. Well, hate to break it to you, ladies, they are not. And I had one of my guests a couple weeks ago was a retired Army colonel whose pictures had been stolen and impersonated and used for thousands of online profiles to scam thousands of dollars from women. And it's the more I am aware of people's stories, the more I realize that, oh my gosh, it is happening today at an alarming rate. And because people are not willing to speak up, they've been, they're victims. I want to call them survivors because I want them to move forward out of that victim mentality. But they're so afraid.
I agree with
There's
you.
so much victim blaming. And maybe you work with that too, is people tell you that you're stupid. Well, it's not up to us to believe what people have to say about us.
100%. I like to call them overcomers.
Yeah, we've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to do something in their lifetime that they feel ridiculous that they did. Right? And we're going to be taken by someone in our lifetime. Could be family members. Many times 60% of fraud is perpetrated by family members. But it's part of life, But if someone has been through, this is where the wise woman comes in. If we've been through something that's been terrible and we've learned from it It's up to us to warn, to caution, to teach, to educate others so that they don't go through it. Now, if they choose to, that's their choice. But like in your situation, you took what happened to you and you're speaking out. And you're helping other women that have been in abusive relationships to move out of that. I'm trying to do the same thing with women that have been taken in relationship fraud. Learn from me, girls. You don't have to lose $1 million. You don't have to lose $200. You don't have to lose $10 to an online scam if you just stop, think, and then connect. And find
and that's the thing. It doesn't even have to be online. Mine wasn't online.
Oh, in person. Right now, I've met so many women that have been conned in person. Bless your hearts,
So when it comes to reprogramming your mindset, you're also reprogramming your intuition. Your intuition, I shouldn't say reprogramming it, your intuition, you become more in tune with it. You become more in tune with your intuition. You become more in tune with what's going on, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, and what isn't. And you learn to step away from things that are not good. And you learn to know what's good for you and what's not. You really do. And it's crazy how was it my daughter? Yeah, I was trying to think which kid it was. I'm like, there's all these conversations going on, and I remember her saying to me, Mom, how do you know? Like, how do you just know, Mom? You always just know, and then you make the right decision. Okay, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication to work on yourself and grow personally, and to do the mindset work that it takes to reprogram this, because that's what it is. It's mindset work, and then there's homework that my clients do. Now, is it book work? No. There's just certain activities and strategies and techniques that I teach that they need to implement. It's creating new healthy habits for your life and for yourself, and so that you can live a healthy lifestyle for yourself, for your kids or grandkids, for the people around you. And you really do. You start to attract incredible, healthy people and amazing people into your life. I have all kinds of healthy relationships now, and all kinds of opportunity has come with that. But at the same time, it's neat to see that we are all helping each other, which is neat. It's neat to see it's not all one-sided, and when you're not used to that, you count your blessings every single day, and you thank God every single day that, I had to hit rock bottom to get it. It was like I didn't really need to be hit on the head with a 2x4, but it took that, not literally, but to make that decision. And
sometimes you just need to pause and to listen to what I call that still small voice, because we are so busy these days. We measure success by busyness, and that's not where we're successful. So, my friend, this has been an incredible conversation. I didn't get any people wanting to come in, but after the recording's over, we will open it up, and if there are folks that want to speak to Angela, please do. Angela, thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Stand Up and Speak Up. We are dedicated to encouraging you to remove the mask of embarrassment and to being your best self. As far as my organization of SCARS and the Society for Citizens Against Relationship Scams, if any of you know of a victim or have been a victim yourself to fraud or scam, please report it to anyscam.com or IC3.gov, which is the FBI reporting system. Remember to join my Facebook group, Stand Up and Speak Up, for special information. Go to The Woman Behind the Smile. We have replays of the show and have had some extraordinary guests. We're here every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and this episode has been sponsored by BenfoComplete.com, a vitamin supplement company that supports happy and healthy hands and feet for those of you with neuropathy. Angela, again, thank you so much for your work. Thank you for speaking up and standing up and for being my wonderful guest today. And
you are very welcome, Debbie. Thank you so much for having me. And
it's my pleasure. And let's pass this on, because we need to all get out of toxic relationships and be willing to follow our dreams and go up, up, and away.
100%. Absolutely. Thank you
Have
so
a great
much,
day,
Debbie.
everybody.
You too. Have a blessed day.